Hi, this is Michael Taylor. I'm the author of A New Conversation with Men. And so I wanted to take a moment to share with you the content of the book, to give you a little insight about what it is and how it may affect you or how it may empower you to become a better man. And so the book is actually written in a certain sequence that I believe is important for people to recognize. And this sequence is we have to first discover who we are. Then we have to be willing to transform ourselves, and then we have to really make a commitment to finding out our passions in life, and then we have to give back to society somehow. And so that's kind of the sequence that the book is written in. Real quickly, a brief overview of the chapters. In chapter 1, I talk about how the conversation began. And in this chapter, I talk a little bit about how I'd gone through a divorce and started asking myself some deeper questions and how I found some answers to those deeper questions. And it is what really triggered me to become a speaker, become a writer, to become an advocate for possibilities. And so that's chapter 1, how the conversation began. And then I move into chapter 2, which is our greatest challenge. And I believe, personally, that our greatest challenge facing the world today is we must redefine masculinity. We must redefine what it means to be a man. We must create a new paradigm of what it means to be a man. And I know a lot of people may think that's sort of an unusual concept because we live in a male-dominated society. And so in a male-dominated society, as men, we sort of think we've got it all going on. But the truth is, if you look at things like high divorce rates, high school dropouts, fatherlessness, domestic abuse, all those things, I think, can be attributed to an old paradigm of masculinity. And so I'm trying to change that. And that's what the whole intention of this book. And so in that chapter, I kind of talk about how society conditions us as men and how we can break free from that conditioning and embrace this new conversation, this new dialogue. And then from there, I move to what I call the 5 illusions of manhood. And it is my belief that these 5 illusions are the foundation of all the pain and suffering in a man's life. And when a man becomes conscious of these illusions and wakes up from them, I believe he can start removing a lot of that pain and suffering. And to me, it's one of the most powerful chapters in the book. And from there, I move to the 5 masks of masculinity. And the 5 masks of masculinity are basically, I think, ways that we as men cope with stress. And so I believe what happens is, as men, we start wearing these metaphorical mask that keeps us from being authentic, that keeps us from being who we really are. And in this chapter, I describe these 5 masks, and I challenge each reader to ask themselves if they may be wearing one of them. And so from that point, I've opened the door to this awareness of the illusions. I've talked about the mask, and then chapter 4 talks specifically about transformation. And transformation is the process through which we wake up from the illusions and start removing our mask. And it is one of those profound chapters, I think, that is a real wake-up call for a lot of men. And after we talk about transformation, and I actually give some steps on how to do that. After we move through transformation, we move into what's love got to do with it, which is really a chapter about relationships. And amazingly, as men, most of us don't put enough emphasis on our relationships. Number 1, because we're trapped in the illusions or wearing one of the masks. But number 2 is because we are so disconnected emotionally, we don't recognize the value of relationships and the importance of relationships. And so I'm trying to change that conversation to help men really grasp the importance of relationships and to start creating rewarding and fulfilling relationships. And then from there, I move into fatherlessness, and I talk about the impact that fatherlessness has on our society. And I give step-by-step instructions on how to assist men in becoming better fathers. And it's a really important chapter, I think, and it's one that I'm really passionate about because I say at the root cause of most of the societal ills, fatherlessness or an old paradigm of masculinity is at the core. So I really want to drive that message home. And so after we talk about fatherlessness, I move into joy, passion, and creativity. And it's amazing how so few men really know what they're passionate about. how very few men even know what creativity really means. And so I really challenge men to start asking that question. What are my passions? What am I really good at? What am I creative? What is my creative outlet? And so I challenge men to look at that and sort of walk through some steps to help them recognize what those passions and creativity might be for them. And then I move into spirituality. And spirituality can be defined in a lot of ways. I personally came up with my own definition of spirituality, which is, spirituality to me is the moment-to-moment recognition and acknowledgement of my connection to something greater than myself. That is Michael Taylor's definition of spirituality. And in this chapter, I talk about the importance of having a spiritual foundation. And in no way do I preach or try to get people to buy into my spiritual beliefs. But I basically say that, or summarize the chapter by saying that, to me, a religion is simply a container that holds God. And so you have these different containers. You have a Christian container, a Buddhist container, a Hindu container, Islamic container, Jewish container. So you have these containers. But I say they all hold the same stuff. And that stuff that they hold is God. So we have to choose a container that nurtures our spirit. And when we do that, I believe we really nurture our spirituality. So I talk about that and how important it is in a man's life. And then last but not least, I move into the last chapter, which is the revolution. And in the revolution, I'm inviting men to embrace this conversation, embrace this dialogue, to become better men. I encourage men to come together to support and challenge each other to be the best men that we can possibly be. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how the book is laid out. Again, my intention is to create a new paradigm of masculinity in which men learn to become better husbands, better fathers, trusted friends, generally happy with their lives. That's what this whole conversation is about. So I hope that I've intrigued you enough to pick up a copy and read it for yourself. This is a book that I can assure you that if you are courageous enough to read it, you won't read it just once. You'll read it more than once because there's a lot of great information in it for you. So my hope is that the book does assist you in your transformation. And it is my belief that personal transformation leads to world transformation. And so as each one of us are transformed, so too is the world. So welcome to my revolution.